The Fourth Amendment was trending on Twitter. So the first thing that they were talking about was Kamala saying that she's gonna go get your guns.
We're not going to walk into that home. Responsible behaviors among everybody in the community, and just because you legally possess a gun in the sanctity of your locked home doesn't mean that we're not going to walk into that home and check to see if you're being responsible and safe in the way you can.
So she was saying, even if you're a lawful person and you're legally okay and you're lawfully and legally allowed to have the thing and it's in the side of your privacy of your own home, that doesn't mean she's not going to go inside your home to see if you're being responsible with that gun. Are you being responsible with that gun? I guess a bunch of guys with guns are going to go see if the people are being responsible with their guns. And then here's another thing that they're talking about, the Fourth Amendment. Now let's take a look from the very beginning here.
This video shows officers rush through a door, quickly push the shelter worker toward a wall, and two of them appear to repeatedly punch him as he drops to the ground. The officers then arrested the man, Jason Salters, a shift supervisor for a nonprofit hired by the city's Department of Homeless Services, or DHS, to run the Renaissance Shelter in Crown Heights.
I was absolutely appalled.
Yeah, that's the newscast is saying allegedly punched as he's being punched. You don't see that with your own damn eyes? That's the videotape is the eyes of God. No, he was getting punched, you piece of shit. And then think about that. They said, hey, we want to come in here and search what's going on here. And he says, well, you don't have a warrant. Go get a warrant. Well, then he got beat up. They got beat up. So, I mean, this is fucked up. This is so fucked up. It's like, why did this guy, he's a government worker, right? So he's being paid by the government. So he's on the same level as a police officer. They're both government workers. And yet somehow when the government worker enforces his civil rights, then the cops are like, oh, you're not going to tell us about your damn rights. And then they're just a bunch of fucking thugs. They're just a bunch of fucking thugs. And so just to make a connection with the first one, so it's no wonder cops think that they could just go around beating up other people, even other government workers, without the Fourth Amendment, without the Fifth or Sixth Amendment, without the Seventh or Eighth or the Constitution, the preamble, or any of the damn amendments, none of the damn civil rights. I mean, she said she was going to break the Second Amendment straight up. He didn't even have to be accused of a crime. There was no probable cause that a crime had been committed. You're an innocent person just owning a gun. Like the Second Amendment says, the Heller decision says that the Constitution was written for ordinary lay people. So I believe that I could read the Constitution and say, well, I got the right to speak, and I have a right to religion, and I have a right to peacefully assemble. And then the Heller decision says you got a right to bear arms for defense of self inside your home. That's specifically exactly what it says. And so, do you have a right to defend yourself according to natural law? That's rule number 1 in Hobbes's land. And then rule number 2 is the right to contracts. Now, there's a big break-in case. This is September 19th. I'm going to post this in a month from now, so it won't be as breaking, and that's okay. But Joseph Couch was found. They finally found Joseph Couch. So this thing had happened 12 days ago. 12 days ago. So on the 7th, well, here, listen.
5 people were injured when Couch allegedly opened fire at vehicles from a cliff.
Allegedly. It's like people are being like overly fucking careful with liability. He definitely fucking opened fire and 5 people were hit. And one lady got shot in the shoulder and it went across her chest. And it looks like everybody's going to survive. Thank God. Thank God everybody survived. But to say allegedly all the damn time, well, allegedly this is a person here with eyeballs and a nose and a mouth. Allegedly he has a beard and some hair on his head. Allegedly. He's got some pale skin and eyeballs and ears. Allegedly. Okay, no, those are not allegedly. Those are absolute facts. It seems like the discernment of truth is getting harder and harder. People only give a shit about power. The truth doesn't matter.
At 3:30 this afternoon, a couple, Fred and Sheila McCoy, searching for the fugitive, saw buzzards circling overhead.
See, there's 4.
And stumbled on a body. This video was shot by the McCoys and posted on their YouTube page.
You found him? Oh, my Lanta. I'm coming. Oh, my Lanta, you found him?
Kentucky State Police say 2 troopers were in the same area.
Oh, my Lanta. These are not phrases I am used to. Oh my Atlanta. So a couple comments on this. So if he had survivalist skills, he could have lived on twigs and berries. But he had said, he had texted, there's two things he had texted to some woman who had spurned his advances. He said that he was going to do a massacre and then he was going to do a suicide. And so my guess is he opened fire and he knew that he hit a couple people. And then I guess he might not have known that they survived. But then he killed himself, and it was like right there, right next to where they were shooting. They had dogs, they had people searching, they were shutting everything down. It just, it seems it's an oversaturation of police officers, and it's such a major overreaction. One police officer had said, you know, when you walk away from your house, you better look at your doors, see if your doors have been tampered with. So just making everybody paranoid. Listen to every one of your dogs bark. Well, if your dog is barking, clearly must be Joseph Couch around. Look at your door. You just walked away from your house and you come back and your door looks tampered with. Well, don't you just call the police? Just back away and call the police. What if you remembered it wrong? What if you opened it and you didn't close it yourself, you know? And then another person, a police officer, official had said that the homeowners need to stay inside. So we're just asking folks just to stay inside tonight. You know, don't go out, don't go to work, don't do your daily business, don't go out to eat, just stay inside your homes. Well, that's totalitarianism now, isn't it? And then the National Guard, the official said that they didn't deploy the National Guard for their own safety. For their own safety. I mean, what the fuck are you all thinking about? Because, I mean, even if he had like a pistol, and he did have like some gun with him, which is what he used to kill himself, they found his car, they found 1,000 rounds, and they found the AR or AK-47, so they found the damn weapon he used, they found his car, they found all the bullets, they just didn't find the one little pistol that he had. I guess there's just so many pictures on social media. I saw one guy that had like 1,000 fucking guns inside his living room, which he's allowed to have. He's allowed to have 1,000 guns in his living room. And so, no National Guard for their safety. The guy killed himself probably that day, right then and there. And it took the buzzards to eventually tell you where he was at. So everybody's freaking out. Oversaturation, overreaction. Major overreaction. They shut down I-75. They shut the schools down. Basically just, you know, kind of telling everybody, watch out. We don't know what he's up to. We don't know what's going on. It's almost like the damn power apparatus, the power, you know, the authorities don't know how to, the so-called authorities don't know how to relate to the common man. Why don't you go out there and get the guy? You think he's out there, then go search. They were doing a helicopter thing, and so I guess that's why they didn't see any bodies, because I guess they could detect body heat, and you would need, you know, maybe not just body heat, but movement. And so if he wasn't alive and he wasn't moving around, then they wouldn't be able to find him. They'd probably find a deer or some other thing. But if he's dead, there's no body heat and there's no movement. So the infrared helicopters weren't working. So I guess, I mean, there is closure, right? So he's dead. He killed himself that day, probably. And this report later on doesn't even say that he had killed himself. They keep telling us not the full story. It's like, I don't understand it, to be honest with you. It's like the media just parrots whatever the officials are saying, and they're not using their own common sense, and they don't really give a damn. They just want some sensational stuff to, you know, get people talking. And then once you've broke the story, well then, you know, the conclusion of the story is irrelevant, right? I mean, a guy was shooting from the interstate. Oh my goodness. Well, that was a news story 12 days ago with the 24/7 news cycle. They were still giving press conferences up to yesterday and basically saying, no, we haven't found them, but we just want public safety. And that's good. It's good to care about public safety and to give people reassurance that they're out there on the streets and they're, you know, making sure that he's not, you know, running around. But in terms of the overall, you know, oversaturation and overreaction, I don't know. It almost feels like you could have just, you know, in a couple days, well, we haven't found any signs of life. So maybe 3 days, and now go back to school, go back to the hospital, go back to the grocery store, go back to the Department of Transportation, go do your homeless shelter stuff, and then just, you know, let the cops attack you and let Kamala. She also, Tim Walz was talking about the First Amendment, how they were going to say no disinformation, no hate speech, and no hate speech against the democracy. And it's almost like, dang, you're going to curtail the First Amendment, Second Amendment. We're going to get any civil liberties. Kamala once said that she was for defund the police because she was against excessive violence, she was against racial profiling, and she wanted the civil liberties to be upheld. Well, that includes the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, and I like using the Third Amendment as the rule. So if Air Force wants to quarter inside your home, you have a right to violently, physically remove that Air Force person and keep him off your property. That's your home, and that's your sanctity. That is your safe haven. So you get to say that, no, Air Force man, this is not a time of war. There hasn't been a presidential executive order saying that Air Force is going to live inside our homes. So since it's not in a state of war, then therefore the Bill of Rights still apply. And you're not allowed to quarter inside my home. Not just soldiers. Nobody could quarter inside your own home. So the Third Amendment is, people want to always say it's not absolute. You don't have absolute freedoms. And, you know, there is a restriction a lot of times. Absolute power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. I like to say maximum. You have a maximum freedom, and maximum freedom says that it's the rule, not the exception. And so what's the rule? Air Force isn't allowed to quarter inside your home. And if you stand up for yourself, the Bill of Rights is self-execution. You don't need a court case. You don't need a lawyer. You don't need a police officer. You don't need shit. The Third Amendment is clear as day. An Air Force guy wanted to stay inside your house and eat your food and sleep in your bed and use your candles. That's what the British did. They had a standing army that they couldn't pay for, so they said just forage on the American colonist. And that's what Sun Tzu said too. It's smarter to forage on the enemy because then you don't have a supply chain to worry about. You don't need to get the guns and ammunition and food out to the soldiers. Last but not least, the Marquis, the letters of Marquis. There's little difference between a privateer and a pirate. A pirate is someone who just goes around stealing shit for their own reasons. And a privateer is essentially a pirate who's employed by the empire to go and steal a ship for their resources. So if you're that ship, you're being invaded by a pirate or a pirate with the sanction of the empire. They're both, to you, they're both pirates. And that's it. So Joseph Couch has been caught. What the fuck is going on in New York? And Kamala, she's going to invade your homes and take your little pistol away. Even if I think that they'll get the assault weapons ban passed. And that will help with, weapons of war being on our street. But the only way to get past the Second Amendment is to either pass a new amendment or to have a constitutional convention and just rewrite the Constitution. If you're not willing to pass a new amendment or rewrite the Constitution with conventions, then the talk doesn't mean anything, because everybody gets to keep their rifles and shotguns and pistols at the bare minimum. At the bare minimum, what does the right to own guns mean? It means you have a right to own a gun to defend yourself inside your home. At the bare minimum, they could ban the assault rifles, but they can't ban the pistols and the rifles and the shotguns. Those are the simplest, smallest, minimal guns that you're allowed to have. And if you're not even allowed to have them, are you allowed to have BB guns? Are you allowed to have squirt guns? Can you put your finger in the shape of, can you have a finger gun? Are these guns allowed? This finger gun? Anyways.